see this one. Oh yeah, Mona Consi. Watch.
That the British government rigged the first and most important election in the history of Nigeria in 1959 in favor of the North. Am I correct?
Yes.
How long were you in Nigeria for?
From 1955 to 1960. I was a Labour officer, a senior civil servant.
Okay.
I only intended to stay in Lagos initially for 2 tours of duty. Although, because of this conflict with the elections, there were difficulties. Actually, government wouldn't let me leave the civil service. They were determined that I should stay in the civil service after my 2 tours. And I was offered very considerable incentives, including a knighthood, to stay and work for government. Primarily this was because I had access to state secrets. I learned, and the Governor-General himself confirmed this to me, that the elections were rigged, contrived. The intention was that the North should rule Nigeria. Even in '56, the Northern leaders were very proud and were saying, if they couldn't run Nigeria, never mind elections. They might not join Nigeria. They might leave. And we all thought, well, how would they survive? There were no industries. There's not a great deal of agriculture, some groundnuts in the north. This wasn't very practical at all. And then it was, the Governor-General seemed to be thinking that the North couldn't, even if it won an election, rule Nigeria by itself. The South wouldn't stand for that. So there had to be a partner, either the Igbos in the east or the Yoruba in the west, to team up with the North. What he didn't want was for the 2 southern parties, the Igbo and the Yoruba, to team up to form the government, because he believed the North wouldn't tolerate that and talked about leaving the federation. So as I learned, in a small way at first, but very rapidly I learned about the election fixing, and as I say, this was confirmed to me by the Governor-General. He actually said that he wanted me to know the truth because he wanted me to know how much trouble I was in.
You mentioned statistics. You were collecting figures. Is that for labor and unemployed people only, or general?
Primarily, but obviously my interest was in the population
of Nigeria.
Yes, and Awolowo, the Yoruba leader of the action group,
yep,
and Chief Enaharo, they too, other people were saying, where are all these millions of people in the north? Where are they? We're going up there to campaign. We want to know, And you see all these, thousands of miles of not very developed countryside, and the northerners are claiming that their voting registration figures are larger than in the south, larger, far more people up there. Well, actually, if you went through the Igbo land, Enugu and that, you saw lots and lots of people. If you went to Ibadan, again, Ibadan teeming with millions of people. But we didn't actually see many northerners, and obviously not many northerners at that time came to Lagos. So this did arouse suspicion. Now,
what does this mean for Africa's most populous nation? If the foundation of Nigeria's democracy was deliberately corrupted, can we still call what followed a legitimate system? Have we been building a nation on a lie told before we ever had the chance to speak for ourselves? Smith's confession goes further. He claims the election was rigged specifically to favor the North, not out of justice or merit, but out of strategic colonial design. The idea wasn't to create balance, it was to preserve control. By propping up one region, the British ensured dependency, division, and internal conflict.
They did do a deal with Zik, Dr. Azikiwe,
Okay.
from the East. Dr. Azikiwe, there was this big problem in Nigeria. It's the same big problem in America and in Britain. How do you get funds to fight elections? The candidates in Nigeria had no money, but they did have marketing boards, which were a kind of semi-nationalized industry. And they borrowed money from the marketing boards. But there was a suspicion that Dr. Azikiwe, who had formed his own bank, the African Continental Bank, was actually bankrupt. But he was borrowing very large sums of money from the marketing boards and not necessarily repaying the loans. We knew this. We had a great secret service. All the politicians' phones were tapped. All the politicians' mail was opened. Everything that any major politician did in Nigeria, we knew in hours. We watched. We knew all that was going on.
Are you saying, in essence, that Dr. Azikiwe took money?
He was blackmailed by the British to do our bidding. We told Dr. Azikiwe that he could go to prison if an inquiry was carried out into his bank and his financial circumstances. However, we would not want to be vindictive if Dr. Azikiwe was cooperative in helping forward the plans that we had made in the best interests of Nigeria. Dr. Azikiwe had nothing in common with the northern politicians. He loathed the northern politicians. But Dr. Azikiwe went north and did as he was told. And what he was promised was this. The real power, effective power, would be in the hands of the northern emirs. However, it would look great if the president was Dr. Azikiwe and he was given a field marshal's uniform and an admiral's uniform. He asked, please, could he have a row of medals? But they said, well, no, that was a bit difficult, to get the medals. So when the ambassadors started arriving, he was known to be asking people from foreign countries, perhaps they had a medal for his uniform. We thought this was terrible, but it was said that this happened. He was very vain. And for a time, he functioned as first the Governor-General, and then when Nigeria became a republic, as the president. But he had no power. And when he did try to tell the army, he said, I'm the field marshal, the army has got to do with this. They said, hey, you're just a ceremonial figure. You have no power. The Prime Minister, Balewa, gives us our orders. So there was a feeling then that there was going to be trouble. And then it was because the Awolowo and the Action Group had become the official opposition. What we British wondered, how could they win another election without the British counting the votes? There could not be another proper run election without us there. We knew what we were doing. We were just helping things along. We were doing what the British do, favouring our friends and looking after our own and repaying favours. We don't call that corruption.
Right.